But up next, I've got a really, really interesting, moving not too far away from diversity and inclusivity. We're heading over to my colleague Gary from British Esports, who's the education manager, and Simon Barnett, who's a SEND teacher at National Star, and they're going to be talking about safeguarding and inclusivity with regards to the students aspect of gaming. Welcome, guys. How you doing?
Hey, Elliot. Nice to see you, dude.
Hey, how you doing, Elliot?
Very good, thank you. I believe, Simon, you've got a presentation for us, and Gary, you're just going to talk to us for a little bit. So,
yeah, I was going to use my face to talk.
Yeah. Your face is the presentation. So I'll let you guys decide who's going to go first. And
fire away, Simon. You go first.
Oh, thanks, Gary.
I'll leave it to it.
Well, I just put together a few things. Hello, I'm Simon Barnett, a SEND multimedia tutor at the National Star College here in Cheltenham, in Ellenwood. I've had the pleasure of working here for 12 years now with some fantastic people, and gaming has kind of crept in. Esports have crept into my curriculum, into the way that I like to deliver and to teach to the young people with disabilities here. So I'll just share my screen and go from there, if that's all right, Gary. I've caught you off guard there,
of course. You did, yeah. I'm used to muting this mic, and now I'm muting this mic. Yeah, Simon, go crazy, dude.
Okay, no worries. Let's see if it will work. Oh, let's put it in the right format first, shall we? So yeah, as I said, there's my Twitter handle and also my email address if you want to contact me afterwards. So a little bit of research. Did a while back here about able gamers, finding out that 46 million gamers with disabilities in the USA alone. And whilst I was looking into this research to kind of back up what we were doing here, didn't really find that many specific research studies done around the very complex learners that we work with here. And this is the guys that really wanted to get into esports and into gaming. They've never had the opportunity, many of them, to actively take part or play computer games like you or I or whoever would have had as a young person, you know, and learn those skills of losing and winning and competing. So yeah, this young man here, Ian, he came into the classroom and he was working with special effects. They were fantastic, and they managed to get him to play Minecraft just by using his eyes, which was just absolutely amazing. It blew my mind, and it kind of got me hooked on what I could do to include more of my learners in gaming. So started looking around at what was out on the market and what we could bring into the classroom, and maybe not necessarily use as teaching tool, but more of a motivational tool in some aspects, and just see where it went, which we've done a research project with British Esports and Microsoft recently, which I'll talk about in a minute. But so we're noticing that our learners really enjoyed using smart speakers and playing role-play games if they were unable to see or hold control pads, so they'd be able to speak and play a game with their voice using their eye gaze devices, which if you don't know what that is, that's where they look at the screen and they're using their pupils to actively click on their device through the PC, which is in front of them, playing games like Wipeout with their eyes through special effects again on their platform, adapting their access and making controllers with our 3D printer that we have in-house here, putting Arduino boards and joysticks on magic arms and moving them around the place so that our guys can interact with games that they would never ever have been able to before. And then like remapping keyboard shortcuts using joy to key and rewads, and remapping controllers using this as well. And then all of a sudden I stumble upon this beautiful thing, the Xbox Adaptive Controller, a few years back, which you can see just to the right there. Someone has made this rig up for a particular user. It looks absolutely fantastic. I don't know what game they're playing there, because there's a lot of functions on being used right there. That's an awful lot of buttons and joysticks either side. So that's the left and right joystick on the Xbox controller being used with those blue handles. that you can see there. So the Xbox Adaptive Controller then gave me lots of motivation to get as many of my guys onto the Xbox platform. And I was lucky enough to have quite a few students come through who really were motivated by the idea of playing for the first time. So you can't really see the pictures here. I've got videos which I can share the screen as well. But this first picture on the left here is FIFA on a screen. There's a young man in a minute that you'll see called Daniel, who uses 4 buttons on his tray to drive with, like a D-pad, and 2 head switches. We were able to remap the buttons to be up, down, left, right on the joystick, and use head switches for pass and shoot in FIFA. So he was able to play FIFA for the first time in his life, being 20 years old, and always had to sit back and watch. The Xbox Adaptive Controllers enabled him to do that. The next one along, picture of a young man called Ted. The Xbox Adaptive Controller, Ted drives his chair with his feet. So he has 2 switches, and either foot plates on his chair, for left, right, forward and backwards. We were able to remap that. So he was able to drive a car on Steam. One along from there is a picture of a young man, Jake, who's driving a car with a joystick, which is simulating the joystick he drives his chair with. So I was able to bring their real life access to their environment into the gaming world, and almost show them that the skills that they've learned to get around in everyday life, they can also use to have fun with, and pick up some more skills with. In doing this, I hope you don't mind me just carrying on here, Gary, but in doing this, no, it's fine. In doing this, Logitech came out with this fantastic switch kit. If you've used switches before with people with disabilities, switches can be quite expensive, but Logitech put together this amazing gaming kit with 12 switches in, I believe. Yes, 12 switches and trigger switches, all different size switches, all the Velcro and everything that you need to attach them to various objects like magic arms or a user's chair or tray, so that you can literally build a rig up for them to their movements, no matter how fine they might be, how minute they might be. So you can get someone to kick the football with just a movement of the head, just a slight tap of the head, or maybe just a slight movement of the foot. Whereas with us, with people who use with people who use a standard controller, they have to hold them in their hand. These guys, they can use all different parts of their body and still engage with the game, which again, really, really exciting for me. So this is Dan's setup. I mentioned it earlier. Dan's an avid Chelsea fan, and you'll see on the left here, the Xbox Adaptive Controller has the jack ports on the back. The 4 at the bottom are where we've remapped the switches that are on the right here, the red, green, yellow and blue one, to be the D-pad. And by Dan's head, he has 2 buttons from the Logitech kit to pass and shoot, just as you would if you were playing with a standard controller. Now, this got really interesting this year, was when AOC decided to have the annual FIFA tournament, and we entered, and we're kind of, I suppose, a little bit dishonest. We didn't tell everybody that we were playing with switches, and my guys were playing with adaptive equipment. So they lost a few times to some people, some young lads who are playing in their bedrooms, who've been playing for years and years and years and years. And when we did actually come out and say, look, well, you're playing with a standard controller, but Daniel's using 6 switches, all independently with different movements from all of his body. The idea was then sparked between Tom Dorr and I to see if we could take this further and create an invitational FIFA Invitational League, where we could do a pilot study and see what the needs were for, and how we could put together a competitive tournament for people with different abilities so that they could play each other on a level playing field. I know that can be quite controversial as well, because everybody should be able to compete on the same playing field, but when someone is using these switches to move around a football pitch, for instance, it does take a long time to learn how to move around swiftly and to get those reaction times up to someone who's using their thumb on a joystick. The comparisons, they're just not there. So we, with the help of Xbox, who kindly donated 12 Xbox Series S's, Tom and I pulled together, with the help from other professionals here at National Star College, Percy Headley College, Aurora Beaufort College, and Oakwood Court College, and we played out a tournament and ran a pilot study alongside it, which it was a small pilot study to start with, but it showed that like some of the key points from the research were improvement in communication, desire to win, competing against each other, was raising their aspirations. The study itself wasn't large enough to definitively say if teaching and learning was improved through playing esports for people with SEND, but the other impacts, emotionally, socially, via communication, fitting in, feeling that they belong, were amazing to see. I know I've been talking a lot here, Gar. I'll stop in a sec.
It's all good, dude. It's all good.
Thank you. And then the most exciting thing for two of the guys that Christopher and Daniel, they were then able to attend the Metronome in Nottingham on the 3rd of July and played live on the stage against each other to start with. So you can see Dan here. He's got his head switches, and on the right there, that's his hands going around the D-pad. And Christopher just over to the right there. And they played against each other. Then we had a member of the audience come up and try and play like Daniel plays. So using the D-pad and using his head switches, which, if it will run, I'm not sure if you've seen that video, Gary, but it's stunning, and
it's incredible.
It is pretty cool,
yeah.
Isn't it? I'm not sure if will it run through here if I give it a go. I don't think it's going to do that. No.
I'll fire the links. I'll get our guys to fire the links over.
Okay. Yeah. No problem. Well, hopefully, I mean, Tom and I have discussed this, and if there's still the will and the hunt for it, it'd be great to continue this sort of thing and give these guys more opportunities to play on a level playing field, and really push out the fact that they can do this, and they want to do this, and they want to be able to compete just like everybody else can compete. But yeah, that's pretty much me, I think. Yeah.
That's awesome, buddy. That's awesome. And just before I jump onto this like safeguarding and online safety side, I remember meeting you at the Metronome at the Champs Finals, and I was there when Daniel and the rest of you guys were there playing on stage in front of, I think it was hundreds of people. I think it was 150 people. There was the capacity, and to see the joy and engagement in their faces to do something that they never thought they could do and compete with people they never thought they could compete against was absolutely incredible. I remember speaking to you afterwards about it, and it was just, it's incredible to see what esports can do for this ecosystem. But when you see it like that, it really resonates with what we are doing within this ecosystem.
It really does.
How we're trying to bring people in. It's incredible.
It hits you there, doesn't it? It hits you in the feels.
It really does. It really does. And for everybody listening, the videos that I'll get William to post out will show you kind of the joy in their faces when they're doing it. So it's you guys doing amazing stuff, Simon. It's a pleasure to be a part of it.
Oh, thank you, Gary. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. And just I guess for the last five minutes, maybe a little bit longer, if Elliot doesn't kick me off straight away, I can go over the safeguarding and online safety stuff. And what I want to touch is really understanding the potential safeguarding risks involved in esports, and involved in the online space as well. because they are great and they're not really touched upon. Now, we as educators, we understand them because we deal with students on a day-to-day basis. Now, people who don't deal with students or don't understand the risks that are involved with online safety, but I want to use the word vulnerable individuals, because it's not just children who are vulnerable to these safeguarding rules and regulations and being safe online. And I guess like what safeguarding means is the protection of children from abuse and maltreatment, prevention of harm to children's health and development, ensuring children grow up with the provision of safe and effective care by anybody who is in their vicinity as well. And it's also taking action to enable that all young people have the best outcomes in this space. And I guess a few of the big things to touch on, I guess, and focused areas are the risk assessment. So if you're running the Esports Champs, I think there was a question early on that was asked about safeguarding and how you go about it. And it will differ from school and college to school and college. That's always going to be the case, and it differs regionally, worldwide. There's always different exceptions. But what we are trying to do here at the British Esports is standardize what online safety is in the esports realm and how it works. And what I mean by that is, if you take Discord, for example, now Discord is a fantastic community-based driven platform where we can come together and enjoy things that we enjoy, whether it's the student champs, whether it's your own community, whether it's an esports team. For example, Kieran earlier was on with Excel. They're a huge company, which is fantastic. But with Discord, there's no real safety checks in place. And what I mean by that is if I was to join a forum, it doesn't ask for your age, your gender, who you are, what you do, a background check. And I'm not saying it should, but what I'm saying is, if you're running an esports team or a college team and you get fans involved in your community through Discord, for example, there's other platforms out there as well. It's how do you know and how do you regulate who's on there, who you're talking to, and what's going on? Because at the click of a button, let's say me and Simon get talking, I've never seen him, he's got a profile picture, I've got a profile picture, I can click on that picture and say add friend, and I've added Simon, not knowing whether he is 40, 12, 6, 90, male, female, non-binary. I don't know any of these things. And that is a scary concept for educators, parents, individuals to get around and understand that there is no regulation in this space. And what we need to do is make sure we're doing our best at every avenue to understand that this is a scary space. My manager, Tom Dorr, who was talking earlier, uses the analogy that you wouldn't take your 8-year-old son or daughter down to the park, see a bunch of random people playing football, give them football boots and say, I'll pick you up in 2 hours. You wouldn't do that, because you just wouldn't, right? You understand the risks that are there, but that is happening on the online space. I can jump to any game, any lobby, and play with anybody in the world, and I don't know who they are. I could be playing an 18 game, a 12-year-old could be playing that. I don't know who they are, what's going on, but we need to make a conscious effort that we are doing our best to, at every angle and corner and turn, to prevent this and really make this a safe space for vulnerable individuals that we deal with on a daily basis. Now, I know there's many educators in here as well. You've all been DBS checked, you've all had your training, and that's fantastic, because that helps you set up these communities, these clubs in your colleges moving forward as well. And it's a case of training, understanding, and what happens, what procedures do you have in place ready to move on from this as well. Your staff checks, like third-party operators, if you choose to use them, like Discord. But again, let's take Twitch, for example, because Garvey's speaking next. In Twitch chat, you create a persona, a portfolio, a file, a name, whatever you want to call it, and you can chat in Twitch. Now, you can see people on there, you can say things on there as well, but you're just a person behind a keyboard. And what we need to make sure is that everybody doing this is doing it for the right reasons as well. We've got many examples how we here at the British Esports do it as well. And how we do it. We've worked with the NSPCC and developing and collaborating on a British Esports Parenting and Carers Guide, which kind of goes into much greater depth and detail. And I'll get, again, our marketing team to link it into the channel as well, so everybody can read it and see and really understand how we work with them and why we work with them, and understand our values and principles behind what we're trying to do in this space. Like Simon was saying before, he deals with students who are vulnerable on many levels, and it's our job, it's our duty to really get everybody coming together and playing in a safe, controlled environment. And so everybody has the same opportunity to do what they want to do and how they want to do it with the best practices possible as well. It's a case of, again, the DBS check, which is fantastic here. And this will change depending on where you are in the world as well. But what we need to focus on is how we're doing it as well. Clear conduct and behavior and expectations and rule setting as well. Make sure you have a policy if you are using Discord. And again, there's many other platforms out there, but I'm just using Discord as a reference because it is probably the largest. If you are using Discord, make sure you have your rules and regulations set up, but by your college. I'm highly confident there's not a standardized set of rules, because every college and school will take this differently and use this differently. But make sure you've got your rules and regulations set up in place before that as well. Close private lobbies, passwords. Make sure you know the people you're talking to, how you talk to. The fantastic thing about our championships is it's all set up by us, so we know all of the players, all of the staff, which are you guys as well. So we do use Discord, but in our Discord, there is only teachers, our liaison officers, our volunteers, and some students, if they have a written letter of permission from their school saying they can be part of this as well. So we do our best, and don't get me wrong, there's not a thing as the safest place to game, the safest place to have a community. What we can do is make it as safe as possible, and that's what we need to make sure that we're doing on a daily basis when we're dealing with these vulnerable individuals as well. Clear on guidance on what to do, control, help and manage expectations of your SLT, your principals, your committees, your communities, your teams, your students, the parents. Do they know what's going on, how it's going on? If they need to ask you a question, are you ready to answer what they want to ask as well? It's about being prepared for the worst, which is not a nice thing to be prepared for, but it's better than not being prepared at all. And clear signposting to a range of additional resources that we at BEA have, that AOC Sport might have, that PISA might have, on these different rules and regulations and different ways of safeguarding and caring for everybody as well. I think I've just seen our parents and carers guide pop up in there as well. So rather than me go through that, I'll let you guys download it, digest it, read it, and come back to us with any questions as well. I know I've run a few minutes over, so I'll stop there and I'll bring Elliot back in as well. But thank you for letting me talk, Simon. I know I rambled on a little bit, but it's a pleasure to be part of this panel with you.
All right. Thank you, guys. Listen, I've just got a couple of questions for you before we move on, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
First of all, Simon, I sadly wasn't able to attend. I was actually isolating at the time for the event, but I watched it. Well, I was part of the comms team anyway, so I was hearing all of the action as it was happening, and it was a really, really exciting thing to see Daniel up on stage there, and I could see the joy in his face as he was playing. What's it like being somebody who provides for them? Do you feel the same level of joy when you watch them? Or?
If you watch the video, the metronome video, I barely slept the night before, and the moment I walked through the door, I had enough energy just from those two guys to last another 2 days without sleep. They just were so pumped for it. It was life-changing for them. They would never have had such an opportunity without all of us working together to put this together and to go to the metronome. I don't know if you've seen the piece that Microsoft put out as well. They came in and took some pictures of Dan and Chris playing when they were on Newsbeat, and the joy in those pictures are just stunning. That's why I do this job. It's a little bit selfish, you know. I get to work with these guys, and they bring me a lot of joy. And gaming, I mean, I got so much joy from gaming as a child. You know, getting stuck on Mario on one level and rage quitting, and
that's the point, isn't it? We tend to forget that, you know, one of the most positive things about esports and gaming in general is it promotes happiness and it makes you a happy person.
It does, and compromise and learning how to win, learning how to lose. A lot of these guys, you know, they've never had competition in their life. They've never been able to join in something as basic as just giving them the ability to interact with a computer game, they can start to understand that it's okay to lose. I don't have to win. I'm still part of this. I'm part of something as well, which is
that sense of belonging is true. Chris Wall has got his hand up in chat. If you wanted to say something, Chris, now's a chance.
Yeah, hello guys. Really informative, guys. So thanks ever so much. I'm coming to this from with a little bit of ignorance because I don't know too much about esports, so I apologise. But I work with Mark at Exeter College, and my question is really about the playing of fixtures, which obviously we take as a standard as maybe a Wednesday afternoon for sport, and we work with Dean from a sport point of view that fixtures should take place at a specific time. You communicate with the opposition for what time that's going to be, and in essence they're played at a time, so at the end of the day students can get back to public transport and they'll be safe. Obviously it's getting darker now, so at the end of the day, fixtures at the moment, I think the guide is at 4 o'clock. A fixture may take 2-3 hours on lead or longer. In essence, therefore, at the end of the day, it's very, very late for students to get back. And I wonder whether, linking with what Ian Russell said earlier on about getting students together, and what Mark believes very much in at Exeter College, which is about the BTEC esports students underpinning the teams, therefore they're all in one place and for the fixtures to take place. Can we explore how that standardization and is worked into those fixtures? Some teams play at home individually, some play in a classroom because they've got facilities. So I know there are limitations, but the more we can get to a standardized bit where we are looking after those students in one area, and therefore at the end of the day, they can go home with friends or parents can pick them up at a generic time, that would help for the safety and the well-being of the students.
Yes, I think this is one for me really more than anyone else here. The easiest answer is, in theory, I know Exeter are reasonably new. I mean, you've been around for a year now, but you've been in the COVID year, shall we call it? But prior to that, all fixtures took place on site under supervision, and everybody was home leaving site by 5 o'clock. There's no reason really why fixtures should go on longer than 1 hour at any given time, unless you're playing a double fixture because you had to reschedule or something like that. But in theory, that level of standardization should be met. And as we come out of this, more into back into our regular times, you should see that problems start to disappear.
And if I can just jump in there as well, Elliot, I was part of the first 8 colleges pilot. So I used to lecture at Sunderland College. So the Sunderland Seers were part of the very first pilot. And then we went on for 2.5 years to be a fantastic team. And I was part of them pre-COVID. So I can vouch for that. And no games were ever held where students played 2 at home, 3 in the classroom. Either dedicated classroom with 24 PCs that my Overwatch team, League of Legends and Rocket League all played from. Yes, some finished earlier than others because different games go different lengths, but the general consensus was I was always there to supervise, and they were always, I watched them go out of the college as they normally would, and then they were on their way with buses or parents picking them up as well. But yeah, it never went on to a kind of a late time where I was worried about the safety of my students walking home by themselves. If that helps as well, Chris.
Thank you, Gary. Listen, Simon, Gary, we have slightly overrun here, but appreciate your answers and your presentation as well, Simon. That's really, really informative and great to see. Gary, Simon, thanks ever so much.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.